Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so excited to film this video because I just got in the mail the NATASHA DENONA YUCCA palette, and it's brand new, it's a new release, and I'm going to review it. We're going to do swatches, and I'm going to do as many eye looks as my sensitive skin around my eyes will tolerate. So let's get into it. For a bit of background, this is one of NATASHA DENONA's midi palettes, and it's $69. And the first thing that I immediately noticed when I unboxed this palette is how incredible the packaging is. So the midi palettes come in her hard shell packaging. This is plastic, but it has this beautiful ombre effect that was on the box, and I didn't expect it to also be on the palette itself. And then the back is this kind of brown color. It's just really striking and it feels really high quality. And this is what the inside of the palette looks like. It's an absolute work of art. I can't even tell you how excited I am about this palette. This includes 15 shades with 4 different formulas, including a new formula that she describes as her sparkling foiled formula. So I'm really excited to try that out. I will say, I haven't purchased or reviewed a large palette in a while. If you guys have been watching me, you'll know that I've found myself moving away from really large palettes for some time. But every once in a while, a big palette will come out that really calls my name, and this just feels like such a me palette. Like, if someone told me to design a colorful palette, I would pick these swampy greens, these foiled metallics, these pops of bright but funky color. And the second I saw it, I knew that's a me palette. I am also very familiar with NATASHA DENONA's palettes. I don't have all of them, but I have quite a few of them, so I'm familiar with the formulas, how they perform, how best to apply. So I'm gonna give you tips on application as well. I will also say that for me, when I see a NATASHA DENONA palette that feels like a color story that resonates with me, it's a pretty low risk buy because I know the quality is there, I know the pigmentation is there, and as long as I know I'm going to use it, it's a safe investment for me. I know that's not the case for everyone. These are, high ticket items, but I can't wait to dig into it. The brand describes this palette as the 2023 palette of the summer. So I don't know if this is limited edition. Sometimes things start out as limited edition at NATASHA DENONA and then they become permanent, so we'll see. The YUCCA eyeshadow palette is the perfect balance of green/brown hues for earthy everyday or shimmering statement summer looks. Her iconic buttery smooth formulas provide all-day wear and seamless application, including 4 new shades in NATASHA's latest sparkling foiled formula. When I saw this color story, I immediately thought of the now discontinued NATASHA DENONA Gold palette. And this is one of her larger palettes. And I was so devastated when they discontinued this because I loved the mustardy browns in here. It had these murky tones. And I think this is an updated version of this color story. So here they are side by side. I think you can see the similarities here. They both have these murky undertoned mattes with golden shimmers as well as these teal and green tones. This one obviously leans a lot more into the greens, whereas this one is more of a mustardy yellow. These are more like swampy. But in terms of just the general balance of shades, I think there's a lot of overlap here, and this feels like a modern, fresh take on that kind of color story. The gold palette is also a palette I reached for and still reach for a lot because it's very wearable, and it's a palette that I found I could dress up as well as dress down, sort of for everyday wear. So I'm curious to see whether the YUCCA palette will feel similarly wearable, even though it's more colorful, the shades are a bit punchier, a bit funkier. I have a feeling it's going to be wearable for everyday, daytime sort of looks as well. So I'm going to create daytime looks as well as more, intense evening looks. Before we get into application, of course, we need to swatch this palette. So here are the shades and their descriptions in order. Plantasia is a sparkling foiled green and bronzy rosewood duochrome. Calathea is a cream powder, a matte medium dark olive green. Como Rebi is a sparkling foiled mustard gold. Acacia is a classic matte golden olive. Camu Camu is a classic matte vibrant lime. Tipu is a classic matte dusty mustard green. Elysian is a sparkling foiled medium taupe. Valley is a classic matte dusty mustard brown. Citrine is a classic matte medium mustard citrine. Ray is a metallic green gold. Flax is a classic matte dark brown. Fuchsia is a creamy powder, matte light medium mustard yellow. Macchia is a sparkling foiled medium green olive. Ixia is a classic matte burnt caramel. And Willow is a classic matte medium dark teal green. So for a bit of explanation about the shades, the 4 formulas are sparkling foiled, cream powder, classic matte, and they're metallic. I'll also drop in some natural light photos and videos because I just went outside to shoot them, and it's even more incredible when you have that really crystal clear light than when you have low light indoors, and I'm just absolutely stunned. The thing I love about Natasha Denona is that they're always continuing to tweak their formulas. So I find that over the years, they've gotten better, they perform better, they're sophisticated, and all of the formulas are very, very distinct from each other. So for example, the classic mattes are your typical powdery mattes, but they're very dense, they're still creamy. That's something Natasha Denona is well known for. And they have a weight and a density to them. But I find that they're not as powdery and they don't have as much kick up as they used to. On the other hand, the creamy powders are so, so beautiful. And they're really unique to the brand. So these have a creamy touch to them. They almost feel a little bit wet and squishy, almost like ColourPop Super Shocks, but they're not quite as pigmented. They're buildable and they apply well with fingers or with a brush, and they just have the most elegant, soft, satiny finish. They don't look as powdery as a classic matte because they have that creaminess. They look very much one with the skin and they almost melt onto the eyes. Her metallics are always very stunning. They're super shiny and foiled, but these sparkling metallics or these sparkling foiled metallics, the new formula, are something else. They have these really, really fine micro glitters running through the shades, and especially in the natural light, they almost look wet or like liquid metal, like liquid glitters suspended in metal, because they catch the light and they shimmer, and the particles are so, so fine. It's glittery, but it's more of like a galaxy, like a smattering of mini micro glitters rather than chunky glitters. So they definitely do sparkle under the light, and I can't wait to get them on my eyes. So that's a bit of background on the formulas and how they work and what they feel like. So let's get into the eye looks. By the way, I'm gonna pull off the protective cover. I always forget to do this because I never use the mirror in my palettes, but I am going to today. All right, so I have all of my brushes cleaned. I cleaned them last night in preparation for this, and we're gonna get into it. My eyes are primed and powdered and ready to go. All right, for the first look, I wanna get into the greens because it is such a defining trait of this palette, these murky mustardy greens. So I think I'm going to start with, let's start with Citrine, this shade right here. It's a matte, and I'm taking just a rougher crease brush into that shade. It does have a bit of kick up. This is her classic matte formula. I'm just going to kind of sweep that broadly across the eye. I know these mustardy tones are not for everyone, but I just think they're so cool and interesting and fun to work with. Then I'm going to take my finger straight into, I think I want to go into Macchia, this shade here. All right, can't wait to see it on the eye.
Wow.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's such a me shade. Actually, this shade reminds me a lot of the Violette FR liquid eyeshadow. Their U paint in Scarabée d'Or. Their Scarab Gold shade. It's almost exactly like this, but this is like the powder form. But it's a really creamy powder, very opaque and thick. And as I'm applying it onto my eye, I can feel it like melt onto the skin. It's becoming very one with the skin. And no fallout, just beautiful, like liquid feeling, sparkling foil. I am gonna take a Real Techniques 307 and just kind of build that shade up. and get into my inner corners. And I am going to shear it out on the edges to blend into that initial shade Citrine. And then I'm thinking, let's take a small fluffy brush, this is the Refer 14, into Acacia, which is like that deeper olive, and just deepen up the outer corner. And just kind of blending those initial two shades together right here. And then I'm going to go back into the first shade, Citrine, right here, and go along my lower lash line. Citrine and Acacia, those two matte shades, these two really complement each other well, and they're blending into each other seamlessly. They almost look like one shade, just kind of blended out. I like the effect of those. Then I'm just gonna wipe off my Real Techniques 307, and maybe we'll go into Plantasia. This is the duochrome shade. It's so cool. It's like a rose gold duochrome flip, but there's a bit of like a green flip in it too. Very interesting. And just add a little inner corner pop. I'm super into this. So for me, that's like a complete eye look right there. It's bright, it's metallic forward. You get that green quality really shining through. And it's not too smoky, it's not too deep. Though you could certainly add more depth with Calathea or with Willow, or even with Flax, this matte deep brown. I'm not gonna finish off each eye look with mascara because I am going to remove these and do more eye looks. So I wanna do a different eye look on each eye. And I think this next look, I wanna go into this really interesting cool toned shade called Elysian. So I have a Refer, can't read the number, I think it's a 14. I'm gonna go into, let's see, Calathea. And this is a creamy matte shade. This is one of those that feels almost creamy to touch, and it's not a powdery matte at all. It looks creamy across the eye. It's very skin-like. So I'm dipping into that. These don't really have pickup because again, they're creamy feeling. And I'm just going to start to sculpt the eye, focusing on the outer corner, I think. These start out sheer and then they're buildable. This is almost like a yellowy forest green. It's a really interesting shade. And then I'm going to take a finger into Elysian. These do have texture to them, these sparkling foiled shades, because of the micro glitters. It's not at all like scratchy or anything. You can just feel these really beautiful micro glitter particles in the pan. So I'm just going to swipe across the eyes. This is such a cool shade. Oh, it's so good. It's like a gunmetal with silver bits running through it. I think it's such an interesting addition to this palette, and it makes this palette really versatile. And I wouldn't necessarily think to pair gunmetal with these foresty greens, but they do complement each other so well. It's just such a departure from the yellowy tones in this palette. It actually reminds me of the cool toned shades in the bronze palette. That's obviously a very warm toned palette, but there's also this kind of purpley icy shade that again is such a departure from the rest of the palette, but adds dimension and adds complexity to the overall color story, and it gives you such a different kind of look. I'm going to take my Real Techniques shading brush and just build up that color. I'm just tapping it on. And it just blends seamlessly into that Calathea shade. I'm actually going to use the same brush and go into Calathea to deepen up the outer corner for a bit more pigmentation and drama. I think with these creamy mattes or these creamy powders, if you want to get more payoff, using a denser brush will help you do that. I know we're just playing around, so I think I might actually go into Willow, this teal shade, and I'm just gonna try something. This one has a bit of kick up, not a bad thing at all. I'm just going to use it between those two shades to add a bit of smokiness, and I'm into the blue tones. I think that complements the gunmetal really well, like in this teal shade. Wow, that blend is so nice. It looks really airbrushed and it goes from deep to light really seamlessly. Like you can't really see where it starts and ends, which is exactly what you want to see. I am going to add a lip because I'm not finishing off these eye looks, obviously, but I'm going in for Victoria Beckham Beauty Spice. I think this is a nude with these grungy yellow tones running through it, but a bit of warmth too. So I think it's actually perfect lipstick for this palette to pull everything together. I know I said I'm not gonna do mascara, but let's go into a deep, deep shade and try to use it as eyeliner just to finish off this smokier eye look. I think that'll help us picture what the eye look would look like with a bit of depth at the lash line. Oh, I'm just using a really old ColourPop angled liner and going into Flax, that deep matte shade. I did get a little bit of fallout with that. That's okay though. I'm just going to do a smoky wing so we can imagine what that final effect would look like. So there are two very different eye looks. This one is that like mustardy, yellowy green. These are the more smoky, cool toned greens. Very fun. I love both of these looks, honestly. I love wearing green eyeshadows, so this is like a no-brainer to me. So that's look one, that's look two, and I'm going to take these off and do a couple more looks. All right, back for more looks. I have some lingering glitters around my face, but they're not gonna come off until I wash my face. So I hope you'll forgive me. I kind of wanna get into this really fun neon matte called Camu Camu. Something I noticed about this immediately when I swatched it is how smooth it felt and how shockingly pigmented it was. And I think it's because this has a white base, and that's what helps it look so neon and bright. And I was surprised at how well it swatched. These kinds of shades can be really difficult to formulate to get that smoothness and consistency. So I was really pleasantly surprised. I really want to pop this in the inner corner. So I'm going to go in with a Refer 13 and just build that up on the inner corner. Oh, this brush is a little wet. That's okay. I washed these last night, so they're not completely dry yet. That's okay though. You can really see once it's like fully on and pigmented, it's such a cool shade. Let's do the lower inner corner as well, just right here. If you wanted this to pop even more, you could put a white eyeshadow primer on. That will really bring out the color. But I kind of just want to leave that as is. I think it's a really fun, I don't know, moment. Since we're here playing with the mattes, let's go into this orange matte called Fushi. When I swatched this, it had a bit of a film on the top of it. This is a creamy powder. And once I worked my finger into the product, it sort of melted into the creamy powder feeling that I'm familiar with. So I'm going to take my Refer 02 into the Fushi shade, and I'm going to connect it to the inner corner and across the main portion of my lid. This one's going on not quite as smooth as the other cream powder. It's still really nice and pigmented. I'm actually gonna switch to a finger. Sometimes that works best for these creamy shades. Oh yeah, see the difference? It's a really different application. And then you can blend out the edges with a brush later. All right, I have an idea. I'm gonna go back into the neon, and I'm going to do a bit of like, not really a halo eye, but I don't know, something like that, I guess. All right, I don't know if that orange shade is my favorite. It's not quite as smooth as the other creamy powders that I have tried in the past, or even as smooth as Calathea, the deeper forest green. But I do really like this really bright lime, neon lime shade. And I even like the colors together. I just don't know if I love the orange on its own, but that's okay. We're just here to figure out the textures of the eyeshadow. Since we went matte on this eye, let's go all in with the shimmers on this eye. I'm really excited about that actually. I am going to use a brush for this. I'm gonna take another Rephr 02. It's just such a good shader brush. I do have a video on my favorite brushes, by the way. I'll link that below. So I'm gonna go into Konrebi, which is this, it's like a brighter green and it's a sparkling foiled shade. There's a bit of like gold flecks running through it. Ooh, so pretty. Wow. Oh my God, it's so good. It's like melting onto my eye and it's super, super bright. I'm actually surprised at how bright of a gold in terms of the micro glitter this is. I mean, stunning. Okay, I'm gonna flip the brush over and go into Plantasia, the duochrome that I used on my inner corner on the first look, but I really wanna go like all out with it. Wow, these are just gliding on, painting on. I'm honestly gonna take it like all the way up to my brow bone. This is an interesting shade because it has that rose gold flip. So I'm finding that depending on how the light is catching my eye, it can look bright. And then when that rosiness comes through, it has like a mid-tone quality to it, like right there. So beautiful. I mean, that's an eye look for me right there. Then I'm going to take the Sonia G Mini Booster. It's this little brush right here. And let's see, what have we not used? I guess we haven't used Ixia yet. This shade right here, it's a really beautiful orangey mid-tone matte. So let's add a bit of warmth. I think it'll actually complement the rosy flip in the Plantasia shade. Sometimes matte shades can have a hard time going over metallics or shimmery or like textured shades, and this is just like sticking right on there. Even as I'm sweeping the shadow over the glitters, they have like melted to my skin, so they're stuck on there. They're not like flaking off or dropping onto my cheek, interestingly. This is a very me type of eye. I just love a shimmery shade like all the way up to the brow bone with a mid-tone matte. And I would love to finish this off with like a red lip on this side. I'm going to go into, what is this? The La Bouche Rouge, their satin lipstick in the shade Nude Brown, because this has quite a bit of orange in it. I think it'll bring out the warm tones in these two looks. So that's look 3 and that's look 4. Look 3 was a bit hit and miss, but I'm really into the bright inner corner. And of course, I just love a shimmery shade all over the eye. And it creates such a wet looking sheen, like even in person, it just looks really glazed. So beautiful. All right, my eyes are getting a little tired, but I think I've got a couple more in me. If my base is looking crumbly, it's because I've removed and reapplied just like this part of my makeup a couple of times now. So I think for this next eye, I want to combine some of these warm orangey tones with the greens. So I'm going to go into, again, this shade Ixia. I'm going to sculpt the eye a little bit with that so I can get a warm base. And again, I'm using a Rephr crease brush, just a big fluffy brush for this. Just building up that shade, concentrating it sort of on the outer corner. Then I'm going to take my Rephr, what is this? I think it's the 13. The number has faded off. And I'm going to go into, should we do Valley? That's this shade, or Flax? Let's do Valley. I'm kind of curious. I don't think I've used that one yet, actually. Has a bit of kick up. Just wiping that off. Oh yeah, those are nice together. They both have these like warm undertones. Then I'm going to go into Ray. This is a regular metallic, not a sparkling metallic, but it still feels so smooth, really glides across the finger. It's so beautiful. And yeah, it just feels really, really smooth and soft and like velvety. Something you'll notice I like to do with the NATASHA DENONA metallics is I first build it up with my finger and then I blend them out on the edges with a smaller brush. And I just find that gives you the most pigmentation with the least amount of work to build up that shade, but it also blends out really nicely with a brush. Just grabbing a BK Beauty T207, and I'm just gonna blend out the edges of that into the matte shades that I laid down. And then I'm sort of feeling like this highlighter neon shade Camu needs a little redemption, that inner corner, just because I didn't really love that third look that I did. So I think it'll complement the bright tones of this metallic really nicely. I'm gonna go for an even more focused application. This is an Esum W19, really, really small brush, and just pack it on right here. And again, just right around the tear duct right here. Actually, let's go for a little bit of like a pointed shape. That's kind of interesting. I'm into that. A little different, kind of fun, a little funky, but still wearable. For the next look, I'm gonna go into Tipu, which is this olivey green. It has a lot of yellow in it, but it's also kind of got this like brown undertone. So I'm gonna see what a bronzy look looks like with this palette. This is a Rephr 15. See what I mean? It's definitely olive, but it has a lot of brown in it to where it doesn't look so green. I'm gonna go into Valley again and just, with the same brush, add a little depth. Then I'm gonna take a small brush into Flax. This is another Rephr 13. And let's create a bit of smoke across the lid. This is really smooth. It's going on really evenly. These deeper shades can be tough sometimes, but it's giving me really nice buildability. I have an idea. I want to put the duochrome shade and layer it on top of this deeper shade. I know this looks really intense. It's a trust me moment, okay? Okay, it's a lot of smoke, but when you layer a duochrome over a deeper shade, a lot of times you can see that flip in a different way and it gives you a really cool look. So we'll see how this goes. Just going to take, again, Plantasia, and let's see what happens. You can see the flip in that a lot better. It actually looks a lot more green layered over the deeper shade rather than bronzy gold, which is what we were seeing just on the bare lid. Taking an Esum V31 just to build that up and blend it out. See what I mean? It totally transforms the look. Oof, that's so fun. I love that. Actually, let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to swatch Plantasia on my hand like this. This is what it looks like on its own. And then I have swatches of Flax and Willow. I'm just going to show you how different this shade looks swatched over the deeper shades. See what I mean? Completely transforms that shadow into a different eyeshadow, like dramatically. It really brought out the green and it almost looks similar to this shade. So let's see what happens when we swatch Plantasia over the teal. I think this is gonna bring out the yellow, like a lime green or like a brighter green, like that. Oof, so beautiful. So it looks like completely different eyeshadows now, right? So that is look number, what are we on? 6? No, 4? Yeah, no. So that is look number 5 and look number 6. This is definitely gonna have to be my last look because my eyes are not happy with me. So I'm gonna do the same look on both sides. Let's go back into Citrine and just using another Refer 15. Taking a Refer 13, I think into, let's go into Valley, that mid-tone brown. And then I think I want to go back into Maquia all over the lid. I just really, really like this shade. Then let's go into Willow, that teal, and just add a bit of that in the outer corner. I'm gonna go back into Citrine to bring in that tinge around the edges. Because this is the last look, I really want it to have like all of the tones in here. Let's go for Ixia on the lower lash line, just to warm things up. And then for a bright inner corner pop, I'm gonna go into Komorebi. So this is the look. I'm going to finish it off with eyeliner and mascara since it's the final look, and we'll come back and talk. All right, back to wrap everything up. I finished the eye look with the Victoria Beckham Beauty eye pencil in the shade Olive. That's what I have as that green eyeliner. I thought it went with this eye look really well. And then I used the Victoria Beckham Beauty Future Lash as mascara, as well as the Victoria Beckham Beauty Baby Brow Baby Blade, maybe? I just used it in that new makeup video. Didn't mean to coordinate the brand so much, but you guys know I love them. And then I finished off with the Make Beauty lipstick in Equilibrium. I just thought like a peachy pink lip would be the perfect thing to tie this all together. So some final thoughts to wrap everything up. If you can't tell, I really like this palette, and that's because I like these colors. I like swampy greens and these mustardy, like kind of poopy browns. I like that. I think it's flattering on my skin tone. These are the kinds of shades I like to wear, and when I do play with color, a lot of times I lean toward greens. But at the same time, it's grounded by these browns, these warmer caramely tones, and the addition of this cool toned metallic gunmetal shade just kind of takes it up a notch. I think you can do a lot of different kinds of looks with this palette. You can go for the greens, you can go for the browns, you could do all mattes. All of the metallics are very different. You've got a little bit of duochrome and some texture as well. The only thing I would say, I have two critiques, are that the mid-tone swampy greens, I wish they were a little bit different, a little bit more different from each other. So for example, I just swatched on my hand Tipu, Acacia, and Citrine, and they are all very different. You can see they have different undertones. This shade right here is Citrine. It's the most different of all of them, and it has the most yellow, whereas the mid-tone shade is a bit browner, and then the other shade, Acacia, is more of that olive foresty green. So I think they do all serve a different purpose. They ground the looks in different ways, and they actually look much more different from each other on the hand than they do in the palette. But I do wonder if we would have been okay with just one or two of these shades, for example, like Citrine and Tipu or Citrine and Acacia. But those are just like minor things. I think I was just thinking about it because in terms of depth, these are all mid-tone mattes. But that said, the different undertones is also what gives this palette versatility. The only shade that I didn't love was Fuchsia. And I'm kind of bummed about it because I really love the cream powder formula, that creamy matte. And I'm wondering if I just need to like get into the pan a little bit more to get the payoff that I'd like. But I just found it drier than I'm used to, for example, than the other creamy matte in this shade Calathea, which is so much creamier to touch. It's much more velvety, and even on the skin, it doesn't look quite as dry. And I'll show you here. I think you can even see on the swatches on my hand, Fuchsia is more pigmented, but it's drier looking, whereas Calathea is sheerer, but it feels so skin-like and velvety, and it looks smoother on the skin than the texture of this orange Fuchsia shade. So that's just me kind of nitpicking this palette, but I can already tell you this is a palette I'm going to reach for all the time, because I think you can get those everyday looks with the murky browns and those like caramely shades, but you can also amp it up if you want with the greens. And also, I like that the duochrome that I showed you, Plantasia, can be layered across so many of these deep shades to give you a different effect. And I think that's going to be true of a lot of the different metallics. When you layer them over the mattes, they look different and are completely transformed. So it gives you a lot of variety. Not to mention the packaging, I think it's really cool to look at. And at this price point, you want every part of the design of the palette to feel special, and you want it to feel like you're getting your money's worth. The last thing I'll say is that these are, as usual, magnetic pans on a magnetic palette. So there's little pinholes behind each shade, and you can pop it out and move it into a different palette if you'd like, or if you're traveling with something smaller. So that is it for me. I really, really hope this was a helpful review for you and that it helped you kind of make a decision about whether this is a palette you're interested in, you might pick up, maybe something down the line. If you have any additional questions or something that I didn't cover, let me know in the comments and I'll meet you there. And if you did find this helpful, I would love for you to subscribe and stick around and come hang out with me. So I will see you in the next video. Bye!